Part 4. Legal tender issue, 1862. This became a new form of currency. It was called the greenbacks because they had the, if you look at the, go online, you can Google it, and the back of the note is all green. But on the back, it had something new that never existed before. And on the back, it said this, and this is all it said. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. There's something missing there. And what's missing is that there's no mention of being redeemable for gold or silver. All the other notes up to the time, all the state bank notes, the interest-paying notes, demand notes from the U.S. Treasury, they all said this is redeemable for gold or silver. This note did not say that. So this note has no redeemability. It's not representative money. This is a new form of money, and it became known as fiat money. Fiat means by decree. So this is money because we say so. This was something brand new. No one had ever heard of this, and people could not believe it. But what this did is that it forced anyone who made a loan. So if you were a bank or if you lent money to a neighbor, they still had to pay it back, but now they could pay it back with this new stuff called legal tender issue, greenbacks. So you could have made the loan 10 years ago in gold, and now it can be paid back in this fiat money. At that time, people would call it play money, make-up money. And that was not very popular with a lot of people. It actually had to go through a couple of Supreme Court cases to finally have it stated that the Supreme Court said that the federal government does have the power to create currency, first of all, and they have a power to declare anything as legal tender. And that was a big change. Fast forward today, a little secret, all of our currency today around the world is all fiat currency, by the way. It also, back in the Civil War, they also passed the National Currency Acts, 1863 and 1864, and this put us on the road to a national currency, and this put us on the road to eventually the Federal Reserve System. It did two things. It created national banks. So now the government, or now as a bank, you could be chartered by the state government, or you can be chartered by the national government, the federal government. And if you were a national bank chartered by the federal government, you could create a new currency called national currency. Now, state banknotes that we had for a long time, for decades, they came in all shapes and sizes, different colors, different writing on it, and all different kind of strange stuff. And it's very hard to conduct transactions because you had all this whole list of different state bank currencies that people didn't know were good or not. And they actually published books at the time that merchants could buy that would have a list of currencies that were good, that the state banks would honor them in terms of paying back the gold or silver, and ones that were not good. And so again, it was very hard to conduct transactions. It made transactions a lot more difficult, and it came back to higher transaction costs. Any kind of merchant willing to accept, or any person, a laborer, anyone, if you ran a restaurant, anyone to accept state banknotes, you're taking a risk. So it made transactions much more riskier and made them much more expensive. So to get around that, the federal government at the time wanted to create a currency that everyone would accept fast and not worry about the risk. And these were the national bank currencies. These currencies had the same size, they had the same kind of writing on them. They're all great works of art. Actually, if you go to the, if you Google the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank, they have actually a online digital museum of a museum of American currency, and they have a lot of good pictures there of this kind of currency, and they're really nice looking. So I highly recommend doing that. I don't know what to call these things. They're not backed by gold or silver directly, but they weren't fiat. They were backed by the fact that the national banks had to buy U.S. government bonds, hold them as collateral for these banknotes. What that means, I'm not quite sure. I try to find out exactly what that means. I have not been successful yet. So they were sort of backed by something. what it is. They were bonds. Could these bonds be sold? Yes. Could they buy gold and silver? Yes. So I guess essentially they were backed by gold and silver, sort of like another degree of way against a way. So I guess it's a kind of a modified form of representative money. And then these National Currency Acts also created an agency that it still exists today. It's not well known, but it's called the Comptroller of the Currency, and this is the power to regulate national banks. So if you want to get chartered to be a national bank, this is the agency you go to. And so to this day, this is the agency that would give you a charter for a national bank, and this also is the agency that regulates national banks. So now, state banks can be chartered either by a state government or by the federal government. And that is true today. And then the U.S. Treasury printed new forms of money, and these are pretty clear. These are representative money. These are your gold certificates and your silver certificates. Gold certificates were issued from 1866 to 1932. In 1934, they were all called in. That's when Roosevelt took us off the gold standard. And then U.S. Treasury silver certificates issued from 1878 to 1957. In 1968, the Treasury stopped all redeeming of notes for silver, and so these were exchanged for Federal Reserve notes. I always thought that at that time, in 1968, that these were no longer legal tender, these silver certificates. I have since read that they are still legal tender, which surprised me. So they still can be used as legal tender, but I would not recommend that. They are probably more valuable as collector's items. I have not seen one for a long time in circulation, but I used to work at a fast food restaurant in high school, and every once in a while people would come in and they would use a silver certificate to buy something, and I would exchange that for and the register for my five of my dollars for my wallet, and then I would take the silver certificate home, and I've kept them ever since. Oh, and by the way, these are representative money because these could be redeemed for gold or silver based on what kind of certificate they were. And so I'm not going to have you know this on the test per se. And let's see if I can focus better. But I just want an idea of how weird money was back then. So we go to 1860, 1865, 1870, 1875, 1880. You have these money here. Gold coins came from the U.S. Treasury. They would mint these silver coins. Then you got U.S. gold certificates, redeemable for gold coins. Silver certificates, redeemable for silver coins. You had U.S. legal tender notes. Those are the greenbacks. This is your fiat money. National bank currency. Those are the currency being created by the new national banks. We also had fractional currency, which I didn't talk about. During the Civil War, it was hard to find coins for exchange. Sort of like now with COVID, merchants are having trouble getting coins. They kind of went out of circulation. People were hoarding them, and that was true during the Civil War. And so you would have U.S. Treasury would mint out fractional currency. They were not backed by anything. They would just say this is a 50 cents, 25 cents, a nickel. Merchants would do it. Merchants would generate their own fractional currency. They would say this is a nickel, quarter. Anyone out there, they can print their own fractional currency. And then you had other U.S. currencies, and this would be those interest notes, the U.S. Treasury notes we had, the demand issue and the interest ones from the Civil War, and then you had the state bank notes. Now, I didn't mention at the time that the acts passed during the Civil War did do one more thing and put a 10% tax on these on these notes, on banks. So any bank that had outstanding notes would be taxed at 10%. And that was designed to get rid of them, and you can see by 1880 they were gone. By 1880, we also got rid of the other U.S. currencies, the demand notes and the interest notes from the Civil War. We got rid of all the fractional currency. Oh, by the way, also they use post stamps as money as well. That's been quite common. And so by 1880, we only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different kinds of money. So quite a strange time back then. Into the 20th century, things started to change. We'll talk more about this in the lecture 2 on the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve was created in 1913 and went into operation in 1914, and they issued their own notes, Federal Reserve notes. And these are notes issued by the Federal Reserve. They were IOUs. They were redeemable for gold, at least initially. And so this is representative money. And these notes were designed to take over the monetary system. And so the national bank currencies were slowly withdrawn, and the new Federal Reserve notes came into circulation. So by, say, 1920, 1930, we still have the gold certificates, silver certificates, and then we have the Federal Reserve notes. The greenbacks were being taken out of circulation, and the national bank currencies were being taken out of circulation as well. Since 1934, only Federal Reserve notes held by foreign banks were redeemable for gold. That was the agreement after the Second World War. U.S. currency became sort of the world's currency, and so it was backed by gold. But by 1971, because foreign entities were bringing dollar bills in and draining us of gold, by 1971, President Nixon stopped redeeming gold to foreign banks. And at that time, we severed any connection between U.S. money and precious metals. So at that time, our currency became 100% fiat currency, and the silver was being taken out of coins as well. I think by 1964, the amount of silver in our coins had dropped to almost nothing. And again, precious metals were pretty much severed from any connection with U.S. money. And I'll stop there.